Welcome to the Bible Forum. I'm Warren Sprouse. This is Sunday night, March 17. It's 2019, and we're here together for the next 2 hours to look at life through a biblical lens and try to solve all the world's problems in at least or somewhere near 2 hours. I have a host of things that I want to share with you. Right now, in Iran's capital city, there's a giant public clock on display that is running backwards, apparently, counting down the days until the destruction of Israel. Iran is Israel's most powerful enemy in the Middle East. They have publicly vowed to annihilate Israel and have been diligently preparing to make good on that promise for years. However, the Iran-funded terrorist army Hezbollah, operating in and around Israel, poses an even more immediate danger. They are growing an arsenal of over 150,000 missiles, perched, as the author says, on Israel's northern border. And just recently, the Israel Defense Forces found several attack tunnels that Hezbollah has been digging under Israel's borders. One of them is about 500 feet long. These are busy little beavers. Hezbollah is not just planning to attack, they've already breached the border of Israel. And these are acts of war. Even though the breach is underground, it doesn't matter. And if this were not enough, Hamas continues to launch rockets and missiles, coordinate deadly terror attacks, and rally tens of thousands of frenzied demonstrators along the border in Gaza. More than a dozen attack tunnels being dug into Israel were discovered just in the last year, and they continue to find these things. This week, on Thursday, 2 rockets were fired at Israel from the Gaza area. They were aimed at Tel Aviv, and one was shot down by the Iron Dome system. The other fell into an open area. Low-level Hamas forces are believed to have been responsible for these launches. However, Israel told Hamas, I take that all back. I'm looking at something. Told Hamas that it didn't matter whether they were responsible enough or not. They were going to hold Hamas responsible. Israeli warplanes hit over 100 Hamas targets in the Gaza Strip overnight, Thursday and Friday of this just past week. The army said 6 were intercepted by Israel's Iron Dome missile defense system. One failed to clear the border. The other rockets apparently fell into an open field. No record of damage, injuries, anything that is worth writing home about. But they did find fragments near one of the public schools. In other news, the Trump administration referred this week to the Golan Heights, calling it the Israeli-controlled Golan Heights, as opposed to the Israeli-occupied. This in a State Department annual report. That is a major shift in U.S. policy. There is no declaration of policy change coming out of Washington, but this seems to be it. This is a small, we would consider inconsequential change, but it's a big departure from our former foreign policy. Non-Israeli citizens in Jerusalem and in Israeli-controlled Golan Heights are now being subjected to the same laws as Israeli citizens. This year's report also refrains from labeling any of the territories as being occupied. Israel took control of the Golan Heights from Syria in the 1967 Six-Day War. The world at large went crazy, you can't do this. But Israel has maintained control. They have extended their control by pushing their laws into that region. making sure that the people who live in the Golan Heights and all that surrounding area live under Israeli law and not Syrian law. But the world, including the United States, has always considered it Syrian territory under Israeli occupation until now. And it is interesting to note that the Bible doesn't do that. The Bible considers that whole area and all into Syria to be Israeli territory. It's just going to be very interesting as time goes on, and people are going to be hurt. Things are going to happen. Here at home, we've got the Speaker of the House, Mrs. Nancy Pelosi, in her weekly press conference this week. She announced that she is going to propose a law that would allow 16-year-old children to vote. When asked by the Daily Caller, she offered the opinion that she thought it important to, quote, capture kids when they're in high school, when they're interested in all of this, when they're learning about government, and they ought to be able to vote. Now keep in mind that responsible and rational people want electors who are both able to think clearly and have a stake in how the vote impacts the nation. 16-year-old children don't have either one of these. Originally, Americans had to own property in order to vote, and they had to be male. And that wasn't because they thought males were smarter. It was rather because they believed that these were the people impacting the economy, impacting the legal aspects of society. The culture of the time did not push women into that world. Today we're being told that restricting the vote to men was an immoral effort to deny women the vote. It was just a cultural issue. It was like that all over the world. The reality is it was entirely consistent with the American experiment. And the experiment was that stakeholders would have a say. Otherwise, it would be possible to sway a mass of unconnected Americans to get anything anybody would want done, good or bad. Sort of like today. It was only judged immoral and unlawful by a generation that was almost 150 years removed from the founders and from the economic and social issues that informed their life and their decisions. Women were given the vote at a time after the First World War. It's dated to August of 1920, after they demonstrated their ability to be active and important participants in the war. They worked in the factories. They did other important things in the war effort and so forth. We asked the question, what have 16-year-olds demonstrated in this area? In fact, what has most Americans demonstrated in this area? We have a large percentage of Americans who are almost completely disconnected from reality, and another large demographic which is demonstrating their susceptibility to gossip, hearsay, empty or false rhetoric, or just simple emotionalism. America would work a whole lot better if we returned to the original premise. If you do not have a stake, if the decisions that are made do not impact you, you would have to demonstrate the ability to comprehend the issues. That would certainly eliminate more than half the nation's citizenry, given our susceptibility to the media. Check my video on the 11-year-old drag queen for an illustration of it, or on the top economists weighing in on socialism. Those are going to be coming a little bit later in this show, but they'll be available. Check them out.